Hi friends, welcome to TechHarvesting. In this video, we are going to have a look at DevOps, which is a very important topic and is getting really popular nowadays. DevOps is a collaboration between Dev and Ops, and Dev stands for development, where you're developing your application, writing the code, building it, testing it, and Ops stands for operations, which means like you are deploying your application or testing it, like monitoring it. All these are parts of DevOps. DevOps is a very important topic, as I told. It's getting more popular, and there are a lot of DevOps tools out there like Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, Jenkins. A lot of them. I'm going to explain most of them today, and let's get started. So let's have a look at CI/CD now. CI/CD is actually DevOps, so DevOps is actually CI and CD, and as I told, it's a collaboration between Dev and Ops. So CI/CD has two parts, CI and CD, as you know. So CI stands for continuous integration and CD stands for continuous delivery or continuous deployment. So the CI part is where you're going to write your code for your application. You're going to use Git and GitHub maybe, or some other like GitLab or Bitbucket or Azure repos, depends on what you're going to do. And you are going to build your application with some tools. You're going to test your application. These are parts of CI, and again, we are going to go ahead and explore different tools that we can use for each of these. I'm just going to tell you now what CI/CD is, and then we'll come to the tools. So that's CI, and CD is where you're going to deploy your application and also monitor it and do different things on the infrastructure side. So here in deployment, you're going to create a virtual machine somewhere and deploy it over there. And in the monitoring side, you're going to go ahead and see the logs of your application, like if something goes wrong, what was the reason, all those things can be seen. So that's what CI/CD is. I'm sure that you have heard CI/CD somewhere. So that's what CI/CD is. So now let's go over how we can create an application with DevOps. So I'm going to go through each part of our application and different tools that we'll be using. So first, what we'll be doing is to plan. We need to plan how the application should work like, or if you don't have an idea, we need to find out an idea for an application. So you can use Kanban boards or different kinds of boards for that, which means you are going to write everything in columns, like you're going to describe everything, what you're going to do. Now, that's just a small part of your application. Like, that's not even a part of your application, just a small part of your plan. So now we need to create your application, which is one of the main things, right? So for doing that, you can use any programming language, and you're going to use Git. So Git is a version control system, and you're going to use GitHub also, which means you're going to host your Git repository on the cloud. And in case you don't know about Git, I have a video on that. You can go ahead and watch that. I'll give a link to that video in the description of this video. So you need to use Git to write and commit your code, like after every change that you have made. So that's the first part of your application. Now once that is ready, you'll need to build it. And if you don't know what building is, you're just creating a production ready build of your application. So your application is now ready. It's like the code is plain. Now we need to compile it and build it into a part where you can deploy it. So for building, here's our first tool that we're going to have a look at, which is Jenkins. So Jenkins is a tool that can be used to build your applications. And also Jenkins is open source, so you can go ahead and look at that also. And Jenkins is very popular among the building parts of DevOps. So that's where building comes, and Jenkins is the tool. Of course, there are other tools also instead of Jenkins, like Travis CI or others also. Like you can go ahead and search Google for building tools for DevOps, and you'll get a lot of them. But Jenkins is the most popular one. And also, as you know, there are different alternatives for each of the tools that we're going to be using. So now once you have built your application, we will need to test it. Now testing is also a very important part, because you could find errors in your application and you could resolve the errors by testing. And testing it, of course, you can use different tools for testing again, and there are some like Cobiton, and Jenkins can also be used for testing. And also there are some programming language specific tools that you can use, like if you're using JavaScript, you can use something like Jest or Mocha, and of course there are a lot of them. And just listing a few of them, okay? Don't think that these are the only tools, there are a lot of them, okay? So now you're going to test your application, everything works, the test passes, and now what you get as the output of this build and test is called the artifact. So these are the files that you'll need to go and use in the next step, which is deployment. So the first part was CI, which we just finished. So till testing, it's the CI part, and then we're going to go into CD, the continuous deployment part, where we're going to monitor application, deploy it, and do all those kind of things. So now once you have got the artifact, which is the output from the build and test, you're going to go ahead and deploy it onto some cloud service. Now there are a lot of ways to do this. The most popular way is that you're going to use a tool called Terraform, and Terraform is known as an infrastructure as code tool, which means you're going to specify what all you need in the code file, in the .tf file, and then you're going to run the file with Terraform installed on your server. And then what's going to happen is that it's going to go ahead onto the cloud and create virtual machines. So it's very simple to use also. It's very easy, and so we can use Terraform to deploy our application to the cloud. Terraform has support for a lot of different cloud providers like Google Cloud, AWS, and more. You can just go to their website and you'll see that there are a lot of them. So that's the part of deploying, but it's not over yet. And instead of using virtual machines, you could also use containers, which are again getting very popular these days. You could use Docker and Kubernetes, and Docker helps us to create a container with the image. And so when you're creating a project, you're going to create the Docker file in the root of your project and give the instructions to build the container image. And with Kubernetes, you're going to orchestrate it. So different parts of your application, you can just connect them together with Docker and Kubernetes. And that's how Docker and Kubernetes works. So you can use them instead of always using virtual machines in the cloud. And also a lot of the cloud providers give services for using Kubernetes, like Amazon, AWS, EKS, and all. So there are different providers, different solutions for each provider. Also use Ansible. Ansible is used for automation. So for example, you have 4 to 5 servers and you want to manage some configuration in all of them. So you're going to deploy it on all of these servers, means you'll need to manage your configuration, right? And you're not going to go ahead to each server and edit the files there, then again go to the other one. You can use Ansible in here, and Ansible is by Red Hat, and it's also free to use. All these tools are free, okay, the ones that I'm mentioning in here. So with Ansible, you can do automation. This is also an infrastructure as code tool. So you can go ahead and write Ansible scripts, and it's going to deploy everything onto your virtual machine. Great, so now our application is deployed on the cloud and everything is working fine. But is it? You need to look all these things if our application is working fine and if all the features are working properly. We also need to look about the insights of the application, so how much connections are coming. All those things need to be monitored, right? So here the next part of CD, which is the monitoring part. So here you are going to use tools like Prometheus or even Datadog. So these tools help us to monitor the state of our application, different parts of it, like how, if it's working properly, if there's some error or anything, and you could find the logs of your application. So if this worked or this is not working, then give me a log of what's wrong, and everything of your application can be found. So that's the main cycle of DevOps. So you're going to create your application, testing, building, all those things, get the artifact, deploy it onto the cloud. You could use containers or virtual machines, and then after that you're gonna maybe use Ansible to do some automation with it. After that you're gonna go ahead, monitor your application, check the logs, everything. Again, you're gonna plan for the new features. Again, it goes on. That's why it's called continuous integration, continuous deployment. Continuously you are gonna go ahead and do all these things. So that's what CI/CD is, and some of the most popular tools. That was DevOps. So that was it for this video. I just thought of discussing about DevOps and some of the most popular tools that you're going to be using and how CI/CD works. So thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. I'm very close to hitting 200 subscribers. Thank you, and if you have any comments, do put them down below. Let's discuss about them. Bye friends.